Hey everybody, Wheelchair Gunfighter. I'm going to start a series now about combatives leading up into how to build techniques as a whole. The combative itself, we're going to define that as the actual methods of applying force to your opponent. Inside of a technique, the technique as a whole is going to be how you and your opponent are moving together within this little amount of space that both of you are taking up in that encounter. So this is just a part of building a technique. In general, you want your techniques to be very fluid and adaptable. You don't want it to be the same way every time. You want it to leave a lot of room for error and be able to transition one technique into the next in a fluid manner, because the situation is constantly changing. So I'll start off this series by saying that what we're trying to build in our techniques, we want every technique to accomplish essentially four things. We're trying to be able to apply force to our opponent. We don't want force applied to us, so we have to deal damage, not be hurt. We want to move into a position of advantage where we have more options than our opponent, and we want to move our opponent into a position of disadvantage where he has fewer options. So that is going to be the framework where we're going to call a technique good or needs work. So combatives. We have 5 principles for building a combative. The first one is going to be opportunity. Opportunity meaning that we are not trying to manufacture techniques, we're not trying to manufacture combatives. You're not trying to force a situation into something where you can use a technique. You're only utilizing what's there in the split second that you are recognizing and solving the problem. So this is what I mean. When we do this, bear in mind that this is given in the context of a training progression of training. So it's not going to be, here's your practical application right away. This is how you build that. So this is what it's going to look like. So at first, we're going to start with some kind of technique like Will grabbing me to pull me out of the chair. And this is the only time that I'm going to use what we call freeze frame combat analysis, where I stop the movement and I'm analyzing what's happening in there, so I can see where my opportunities are. So this is only in the very beginning. So Will comes up to apply the technique, and I'll freeze him. Now, once he's frozen, I'm going to look and see what we can do to start dismantling the body. I want to attack places that are instantly or very rapidly going to shut down his ability to hurt me. Applying pain, attacking nerves is not going to do that. I need to attack mechanical functions or systemic functions. So I'm going to look around. I have a mostly extended joint here. I can maybe attack this. I have the hands here, so maybe I can attack the wrist. I've got fingers, I can maybe attack the fingers. What do I have up here? I've got the throat, that's a target. I've got the eyes, with him hunched over me like that, that's relatively close. So I can ignore the grab and then go for the eyes. So just looking right here to see where the targets are. Now back up. Now, as you progress, once you start to recognize where the targets are with these different freeze frames, so if we can freeze the frame, so freeze here. I can freeze him here, and I can do something a little bit more proactive. I can start seeing what my proactive targets are. Or he can continue through the grab and get to where he's pulling me, freeze, and see where my targets are here, if they change. Sometimes they don't change, sometimes they do. Okay, and the progression would be, at some point, he's going to go in a nice, slow, fluid manner where he goes the entire motion. So he comes in nice and slow, and then I start seeing where my techniques are in a more fluid environment, and then going faster and faster, all the while maintaining full momentum, full follow-through to really test the limits of the particular motions that you're applying. Now, the second principle is we're going to prioritize our targets. You don't want to attack things that aren't going to give you a lot of benefit. So we saw what all our targets are. We're starting to read the opportunities. Now he comes in, I'm going to start really prioritize what is the best thing that I can get, what's going to have the most value towards incapacitating this guy who's really trying to hurt me. So it's the things that are going to be the most mechanical and most systemic in nature. So systemic, in this case, would be right in here, right? That's going to affect either blood or air, depending on how I strike or how I grab. The eyes are always good, and that's going to give me a mechanical effect, head back, as I've mentioned in other videos. Elbows are also very good. This might not be something where I'm trying to do something a lot more maiming or lethal, right? As something solid to the elbow, if this joint's extended enough, is always going to have an immediate effect. Anything mechanical is going to be very instant. It's going to be rather instantaneous. So really, elbows are probably, in most cases, where I would go for right here, just from this particular situation. Now let's try a different situation to apply the first two principles. Let's try, say, a stab with a knife. So he comes in, I'm going to freeze it. Okay, so I'm going to see what I have here. Elbow's not there. You know, something to remember is that your opponent is always going to be the most vulnerable as he's attacking you. His mental commitment is to attacking you. So if you can defend yourself and attack at the same time, which would be aligning all of those core objectives, protecting ourselves, applying damage, position of advantage, position of disadvantage for our opponent, that's what I want to do, because that's when he's going to be most susceptible to accepting damage and not being able to defend himself. So if I can defend with this knife somehow, right, which is going to be part of the combative, and applying something up here, right, I still have eyes, which are going to get me some stuff, but it's not going to deal with the knife. Attacking more straight in here, or if I deflect it with this hand maybe, and I'm attacking stuff like the collarbone, now that's going to give me a nice mechanical effect for affecting what's holding this knife. So just by following those principles, you can begin to see what really your primary targets are depending on the situation. Now, third principle is being really precise in your training with what you're aiming for. And this is there's all kinds of drills that you can do to develop that. Really, it's going to come to more of the fluid drills. So if he's attacking me with this knife, I'm going to try to very accurately pinpoint a target. I'm going to use the portion of my hand that's going to do the attack, and I'm going to reach up and I'm going to aim for a very small point. So I'm not going to say I'm hitting the throat. I'm not going to say I'm just hitting the throat. I'm specifically aiming with a small portion of my hand to a very small portion on his neck. You know, think pinpoint, I'm striking a dime-sized area. Be very precise with your targeting. And obviously that's going to go away the more stress you add, but the more precise you are in training, the smaller your cone of deviation is, the smaller the degree of how wrong you're going to be as the more stress is piled on and the more wild your techniques get. So let's think of something like knife to the throat. All right, we think knife to the throat. Okay, we'll freeze here. See what our opportunities are. Let's see. See what our opportunities are. Hand, right, I want to defend and attack at the same time. Right, just high priority targets. Right, how can I move in a way to get to a position of advantage? Okay. So, try it with a bunch of different techniques. Freeze it, and then go through the different principles. So number one, opportunity. See what all your options are. Two, see start prioritizing. Three, start being really precise with what you're aiming for. The fourth one is always apply a combative, if you can, in a method that's going to help you move that person or move yourself into a position of advantage. For the wheelchair folks, this is going to mean moving your opponent into a position of disadvantage rather than moving yourself. So let's go back to that same scenario. So how I'm going to apply these combatives, I'm going to do it in a way which moves him this way, right? So if I'm going to strike, say if I throw a strike here to a rib, it's going to be in a method that turns his body mechanically. Okay? That's what I'm going to be aiming for here. So let's go back to the straight stab. So where I'm going to strike, maybe I strike here, right to the portion of the head which is going to transmit energy really well with an open strike. It's going to further turn his body into something like this, where I can begin moving him into a position of disadvantage. Now, in order to do that, you're going to come to our fifth principle. So opportunity, only go with what's there. Okay, if you're talking about joints, don't try to manufacture a technique. Okay, I'm going to go with what's already there. It's what's already presented to me. So opportunity, then prioritize your targets, develop a lot of precision, and most importantly, but also power. Make sure that you're applying your combatives in a method where it's mechanically moving them, if possible, into that position of disadvantage. And the way that you're going to gauge that is with follow-through. Okay? Follow through, you're using their momentum in a lot of these cases. So not just follow through for you, because what you're trying to do, you want to apply follow through, yes. But if Will's doing a technique where he's stabbing and then stopping because he doesn't want to, as a good training partner, stick me with this knife, I can't do a whole lot with this. Okay? I can't deflect this. It's not going anywhere. So I can't use his momentum to do anything. There's no momentum on my part, there's no momentum on his part. That's really the key to seeing the full mechanics of how these movements work. It works if I'm doing kind of stopping techniques to block something, but these don't work from the wheelchair because he has mobility and the ability to control space as his advantages on me, and I have to take those away. I take those away by using his momentum in most cases. So he has to simulate momentum. So I might let him actually poke me with this knife a little bit to make sure that that's where that knife is going. That knife is going to go somewhere. So I need to apply momentum in my strike to push him if that's what I'm doing. If I'm applying to the elbow, right? If I'm applying it to the elbow, whatever technique I'm using, he comes in for the stab, and I'm doing it here. I'm applying momentum so I can see how his body goes. So follow through is imperative both on the defender's side and on the attacker's side. You're both learning what's happening mechanically as this little scenario unfolds. So, only do, again, opportunity, prioritize your targets, develop precision, be as precise as you can, because a lot of these things you'll only get one shot. It's the same principle when you're in a gunfight. The person who gets first rounds on suddenly has an enormous advantage over the other person. The first one who gets a strike in, even if it's just an eye flick, even if it's just a finger in the eyeball, it's going to cause the eyes to involuntarily water. Their vision is going to be hindered slightly whether they like it or not. Just the first shot, a slight, even a glancing shot to the throat is going to cause a startle reflex with your body. It's where it's closing up to defend itself. So whether that guy likes it or not, the oxygen to his brain is starting to be affected. The first one who gets a shot in is going to have a large advantage. That's something to think about too when you're defending. If you allow that person to get a shot in, you're at a disadvantage, and you have to overcome that to retake the initiative in the attack or in your defense. So be precise. Move the person in a position of disadvantage, whether it's with a joint lock or with a strike. See how you can move them mechanically to that position. And then be sure to practice all of this with follow-through. If you don't have follow-through and commitment in that attack, you're not going to be gaining a lot of valuable knowledge. So those are the principles for building the combatives, and just bear the objectives in mind for building techniques as we move through this and understand more about how bodies move in space around each other inside these conflicts.
Shot
right
down,
in between
was
right
up
here,
here.
and it'll give you a rock solid.
So we shook it down a couple
I'm not
clicks.
used to that.
He shot here. And I said, you need to quit. We need to take a picture of it.
Hit!
He said, no, I'm going to shoot one more.
Sounded pretty.
And when he shot, I was watching him shot.
Good job, bro.
He just